Hello, welcome to the Last Supper of Outcasts. And I'm your host, Madam Blavatsky. Today is Thursday, June 18th, 2026. Not that it matters. And today's quote of the day is by Albert Einstein, and it goes as the following. Coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. That's a quote by Albert Einstein. Pretty smart fella. Today was a normal day. I drove Uber as my usual routine. And I got to tell you, I'm having a hard time finding a job. And when I do find a job, I'm having a hard time stomaching the either the people I'm working with or just the situation. I had a job for 3 days this month. That's how long I lasted. I don't. It could be me. It probably is, but I just people might deride Uber and have complaints about Uber, but I got to tell you, it's keeping me alive, and I'm not really busting my butt. So say what you want about Uber. To me, Uber is saving my life, and it's doing it without me having to kill myself. And I'm sure that's because of the locality. I'm in Phoenix. Phoenix is big on rideshare. It's a sprawling city. People aren't afraid to use it. People are very comfortable using Uber and other forms of rideshare. So I'm thankful for that. And today I had a very interesting conversation with one of my customers, a former sergeant in the gang unit in Texas, former armor veteran, and a former alligator hunter. And I'm saying all this because anybody that's a former alligator hunter is not a pansy ass. And after talking to him for a while, it was it was almost a 30-minute drive. After talking to him and him getting kind of comfortable with me, because I could see that he wasn't, he's a former sergeant in a gang unit in the police department. I could see why. You could tell he was suspicious from the get-go, but we got really comfortable with each other, and he was actually really cool. And after we got talking about many different things, diet, his alligator hunting experiences, things like that, something made him just kind of blurt out. It was he was telling me a little bit about himself. Because he was headed to the casino to play bingo, and he was telling me about how he thinks he has a handle on how the virtual roulette machine works, and with the PSA and counting all the stuff. And he got into how he recognizes patterns probably better than like a normal person, and how he can see like figure. You look at a wall and it has maybe stucco or some kind of a texture, and he can see figures in it, and he can create images in his mind from that. And it was almost like talking to myself, because I'm an artist, and that's a lot of the way that I come up with some of the original ideas that I had, was by just staring at interesting textures, and letting my mind kind of just relax and see what pops out. And it's pretty amazing. Alan Watts talks about this in one of his videos, where he says that Leonardo da Vinci actually did the same thing, which is astounding to me. But that's for another video. And Alan Watts, by the way, is one of the knights at my round table. He's one of the 12 disciples in the Last Supper of Outcasts. But this person, he just, as we were talking about 15 minutes into the conversation, after he told me about his pattern recognition, he just came out and said, coincidences do not exist. He said that, and he was very confident about it. And again, this guy is no pansy. He's not a woo-woo. He you could tell just by the ruggedness of his face and the way he spoke. This isn't somebody that spent a lot of time coloring. You know what I mean? And he said coincidences do not exist. The universe is trying to tell you something, especially if it's a repetitive patterns, be it relationships, be it habits that you may have, you name it. And again, this coming from a former alligator hunter. So that kind of made me take his advice to heart, and it made me think of I've had so many coincidences that I feel that he's definitely onto something. And it made me think of this one coincidence that I had, coincidence in quotes, that I had at the tail end of my stay in Hollywood, California. And this was a time I typed a lot of this stuff out, so if it looks like I'm reading, it's because I am, and I'm trying to reduce the stuttering. But during a time of great turmoil towards the end of my stay in Hollywood, a person I admired years and years before, when I was in music school in Buffalo, New York, he also happened to be in Hollywood at that time, and he coincidentally found my name. He saw my name on a sign-in sheet at a music venue that had an open mic. And apparently, I guess we had to write our phone numbers down on there for whatever reason. And he found my name. And he reached out to me. And he remembered my name because at the time when we were in music school, he was graduated. He was actually a Fulbright scholar. He was off to Denmark. And when it was either before or after, where he may have been preparing to leave, but he was practicing. He wasn't really a full-time student at the time. He was already on his way out. He was on his way to Denmark. So he would come into the school, into the college, which is the University of Buffalo. And our teacher was Jan Williams, who is a monument to the new music realm. And my friend would come in and practice his routines, and he was brilliant. He was a brilliant musician, and I remember seeing him practicing and listening and just being like, you know, flabbergasted. He was really something else, and when he performed, he was special. And so that he found me, and he actually reached out to me. Somehow he remembered my name, which was, that in itself is kind of a shock. Not a shock, but it's a pleasant surprise, because I didn't think he knew me from Adam at the time. And also the chances of him finding me in such the vast landscape of Los Angeles seems just, and it still seems astronomical to me. But he found me, and we did become friends in Hollywood. We'd hang out together. We'd go to these. He was into, at the time in Hollywood, he was into Brazilian, real Brazilian percussion music, which is outstanding. and we would go to watch the shows, and I would go to watch him sometimes when he was performing. And this guy was serious. He's a serious musician. He still is. He's had experiences with some big names, and again, we weren't friends back home. I just knew who he was, and I admired him. And 20 years later, him finding me and reaching out to me in Hollywood had a very powerful effect on me psychically. Um, and it turns out that he reached out in a moment in my life, in my career, in a time where I was in deep turmoil. At the time, I was involved in the real estate business, and real estate was hitting a wall, literally hitting a wall. The leads dried up uh, virtually overnight. Banks were going out of business. They were falling like dominoes, and it was scary as hell. And this is the time when he reached out. This was the beginning phases of the Great Recession, as they call it. And a lot of you are probably even maybe too young to even know it, but to know what that is. But I experienced it, and it was scary. Uh, so I was in the middle of, uh, in the midst of heavy, heavy soul searching. I was reading the Bible. I was reading Paramahansa Yogananda books. Uh, and I even visited Paramahansa Yogananda's ashram in the Pacific Palisades, which I am extremely grateful for having done that. Even though my life has been rough, I've had the opportunity to see a lot of things, and I am thankful that that is the case. And the ashram, apparently, I just looked it up on Google, is it survived the Palisades fires that took place in January of 2025, just last year. I guess the point is, my revered acquaintance and friend showed up at exactly the right time. Coincidence? Honestly, I don't think so. I've had too many coincidences like that. So, and I know in a past video I said, because I was feeling very angry, and I have mixed feelings about humanity. Some days I love them. Some days I just don't want anything to do with them, and that comes in clumps. And it seems like we're all on, like, when I feel like I'm compassionate and empathetic towards humans, they're everybody's feeling friendly, and when I feel like I'm not, everybody's not so friendly. So maybe it's something in my mind, and I think there's something to that. And I also said there's no such thing as demons, and I should be ashamed because I'm not sure about anything. I like I've said several times, I don't know anything, but neither does anyone else. So to be sure about anything is a major, it's a problem, in my opinion. So that brings me back to coincidence. I don't think so. I highly doubt it. And as it turns out, my friend, he himself was on a soul search of his own, and he introduced me to a couple, a married couple, man and wife in Hollywood, who were shamans. And at the time, I had no idea what a shaman even was. I couldn't tell you a shaman from a Starbucks worker. I was that much of an idiot, and I still am an idiot, but with a little bit more insight these days. These particular shamans, however, they didn't wear spectacular ritualistic clothing or feathers. They were just a married couple who also happened to be shamans. They didn't dress differently. They would do our little sessions in just normal t-shirts, shorts, sandals, flip-flops. And at first, I was reluctant to even visit them, but they didn't charge anything, so I'm like, well, why not? What the heck? So I took the step, and I went to the first session, and I went to a lot of them. I went to many sessions with them, and I'm thankful for them too. And I hope they're doing great, and and all their everything is going well for them. But I remember the first thing that they did was clean. They did a cleaning the chakras sort of a ritual. And again, at the time, I had no idea what a chakra was. You could have told me it was part of an automobile engine, and I would have believed you. But that was the first session, and they laid me down. They laid me down on a table, and they went through all my chakras by hanging something that was it was something metallic, I believe, at the end, almost like a stone at the end of a chain, and they just hung it over, no movement in their hand, and this thing just started swinging around, and I was like astounded, and it did that for every one of my chakras. I believe there's 7 or 8 of them, and I asked them why is it doing that, and they said, well, because chakras haven't they needed cleaning, like an air filter in a car or in an air conditioner. So they did that every session, and I noticed that every session that they cleaned the chakras, the circular motion of the object became less and less dramatic. So I guess that meant that the cleansing was working. And every session consisted of cleaning the chakras. They would also have me write things on topics they would propose, and one that I still recall was named "This Child Was Delivered to the Wrong House," and then they would have me expound on that, and I would have to write a story based on that beginning line or that title, and I did, and the story that came out, I can't recall it exactly, but it was astounding, and you'd be amazed what you can do when you're kind of under pressure. Here, write a story about this, and then you got 5 minutes. It wasn't like I could spend all day. I had to do it right in front of them. So, in short, the shamanic encounter was well, it was heavily involved in. I remember the word soul retrieval, and they would always um, align that with. They would liken it to the peeling away of the layers of an onion to retrieve your soul. And I truly believe that I'm still going through this process. Even though I haven't visited them in many years, I believe I'm still in this process. They started that process with me. And because of locality, they're too far away from me. Otherwise, I would still go. So the results of my visits with the shamans is, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It hasn't been easy. And I'm going to read you a couple quotes here. One by Immanuel Kant to kind of delimit what I just said about it not being easy. I think it's not easy because a real soul search is not supposed to be easy. And people that think enlightenment is some kind of state where you are in some kind of a bliss. You might get to a blissful state, but getting to the blissful state, I believe is not supposed to be easy. And Immanuel Kant himself, one of our great philosophers, he defined enlightenment as mankind's emergence from self-incurred tutelage. The courage to use one's intellect without guidance from others. That's Immanuel Kant's definition of enlightenment. And that's what I'm all about here, folks. using your own intellect without the guidance from others, because you have it. It is innate to us. I truly believe that. And again, I'm not sure about anything, but I've done some hard searching and some hard work, and that is something that's standing out above all else, is to rely on our own instincts, our own intellect. And that's another thing the alligator hunter today in the car said. He said, rely on your first instinct. Rely on that. And this guy, he wasn't making anything up. I could tell. I can tell that. That's my pattern recognition. I have a gift for that too. And here's another quote, and I'm not sure how you say the philosopher's name or the guru's name. It's Adyashanti. And he said about enlightenment, he said, make no mistake about it. Enlightenment is a destructive process. It has nothing to do with becoming better or being happier. Enlightenment is the crumbling away of untruth. It's seeing through the facade of pretense. It's the complete eradication of everything we imagined to be true. And that, again, I think you pronounce it Adyashanti. Adyashanti. I'm not sure. But that's the philosopher, the guru's name. And man, that one hits home, because that's what's been happening to me. I believe I'm still going through this shamanic process of soul retrieval, of searching for myself. And one thing that I have been learning is to rely on my own intellect and my own instinct. And it's been hard. I'm not going to lie. But I think it's also protecting me in a way. Because even though my life after my time in Hollywood has not been easy, I do feel like there's something protecting me from some possibly horrible things that may have occurred if I didn't listen to myself, and if I wasn't honestly searching for my own soul. First and foremost, I wouldn't have decided to go back home, and I would have missed having to be able to spend 3 years with my mother before she died. I moved home. My mother was young. She was only 69 when I moved home. And I moved home, and then I got home, and like a couple months later, she started complaining about feeling something in her stomach that wasn't right. And, 3 years later, she's gone. So there's one aspect. And then at the very tail end of living in Hollywood, I got kind of tired of living in a shack. I was trying to get out of that, and I found this place which was in the hills of Sherman Oaks, in the Studio City area, and it was cheap, and it was in the hills, and it was, for Hollywood, it was cheap. And it was something I could almost barely afford, but I could afford it still. And I remember going into that to look at the apartment. It was upstairs. There was no place for a refrigerator. There were no real windows, and the windows had slits. And the people that owned this were apparently, they told me they were Disney architects, architects for Disney World or Disneyland, or whichever one is in Hollywood. And they worked for Disney in some aspect. But this place was creepy, man. And but at the same time, I wanted to get out where I was, and I could tell all my friends, oh man, I live in the hills of Sherman Oaks, and boy, wow, how'd you do that, And I remember the lady bringing me up there. There was no place for a refrigerator. I would have to go downstairs and go to the refrigerator when I needed to. There was no windows. The only windows were slits. there was a weird balcony that barely let you move, and then in the kitchen there was some kind of a weird looking altar type of thing. So you would have thought that that would have sent red flags all over the place. It's almost like this place was like for sacrifices. Honest to God, I'm not making it up. And it was creepy. And I remember the lady saying, "Well, make sure you read the contract. Make sure you read every contract you ever sign." And of course, I didn't read the contract. I just signed it because I wanted to get the hell out of the place I was in. Uh, and I was going to rent this place. They approved me and everything. And then lo and behold, the recession followed me into my backup, which was as a graphic artist for a company that produced T-shirts and had licenses with a bunch of big names. And they furloughed. They were starting to furlough. They were threatening to lay us off, even after they just had a big cattle call. Now we were all on the chopping block, and and then I just thought about it for about a week or so about going to this place, and I'm like, yeah, you know what, this is probably going to be it. I'm out of Hollywood. I'm tired of this. And I remember going and telling the lady, she was nice enough to give me my deposit, and she took me in my ear. She said, like, she literally came up and hugged me and literally in my ear said, "You're doing the right thing." And that place was creepy, man. I think they were up to something up there, but she did say that to me. She almost like whispered it in my ear, and that was creepy too. So I think I escaped something there. And so even though life has been hard, I think I've escaped. I think my decisions have allowed me to escape a much worse predicament. And I'm still on the shamanic journey. I truly believe that. And although it's been hard, I really do feel like I'm being protected and being led down the right path. So the short answer is no. I do not think there is such thing as coincidence. So I know this is a long video. I hope you got something out of the video. I would love if people out there that have had similar experiences, similar circumstances, would love if you left a comment. But I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you got something out of it. Please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And that's it for today. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great night. Thanks again.